Princess Valera walked slowly through the high glass corridors of her palace. The walls shimmered with soft lights that changed color depending on her mood. Today, they glowed pale blue, the color of sadness. She passed door after door, each leading to a room full of luxury, rooms filled with jewels, fine fabrics, and advanced machines, but none of it mattered to her. The palace felt empty. Every step she took echoed through the silent halls. Even the servants, polite and skilled, kept their distance, as if afraid to disturb her loneliness. Valera had lived in this palace all her life. She had everything her kind could desire: technology that could reshape the environment, a library with knowledge of thousands of worlds, and a command over her people's most powerful tools. But for all her wealth and power, she felt invisible. Her appearance was slightly different from others of her royal line. Her skin had a soft violet tint instead of the usual silver. Her voice was gentle and lilting. Unlike the strong tones her people admired, even her height was smaller, making her feel like she never quite fit in. At court, whispers followed her wherever she went. Not royal enough. Too soft. Unfit for duty. Nobles would look at her with polite smiles, but their eyes were cold, judging. Even her advisors treated her as delicate, offering guidance in a tone meant to protect her from herself. She was constantly reminded that she was somehow less than, even though she knew she was intelligent, capable, and kind. Valera sighed and stepped into the palace garden. It was her favorite place to hide from the world. Giant, glowing plants stretched toward the sky, and artificial streams sang a quiet, soothing song. She walked along the paths, her hands brushing the soft petals of alien flowers. This garden was the only place she could think freely, away from whispers and judgment. She sat beneath a crystal tree, a rare species that glimmered in rainbow colors. Opening a datapad, she read the stories of past leaders, heroes, explorers, diplomats who changed the galaxy. She admired them, imagining what it would feel like to be seen and respected for her true self. To be loved not for her title but for who she was inside. But that thought always ended in a quiet ache. Who would love someone like her? She had long given up hope that anyone could ever look at her and see beauty instead of difference. Her solitude was broken by a soft, urgent alert. A distress signal flashed across her datapad. A nearby space station had been attacked. The station's automated systems were failing, and several scientists were stranded. Valera frowned. Normally, she would leave such matters to her fleet commanders. But something inside her stirred, a sense of duty, of wanting to do something real. She could not ignore the call. Without hesitation, she summoned her hovercraft. Sleek and quiet, it slid across the palace grounds and lifted into the sky, carrying her toward the distant station. As she flew, the stars stretched around her, vast and beautiful. Yet even amid the endless galaxy, she felt the familiar pang of loneliness. She would go alone, of course. Who else would risk themselves for her? Who would care enough to join? When she arrived, the station was a scene of chaos. Smoke rose from damaged modules, alarms blared, and flickering lights painted the corridors in red. The station's outer defenses had been breached by unknown marauders, leaving it vulnerable. Valera's pulse quickened. She had never been in a real battle before. Most of her life had been about diplomacy, appearances, and cautious strategy. But this was different. Valera stepped into the station, her uniform flowing behind her. Her eyes scanned the area, searching for survivors. Debris lay scattered across the floor, and the air smelled of ozone and burning metal. She felt a flicker of fear, but she swallowed it. She had to help. She had to prove even to herself that she could act bravely. As she moved deeper into the station, she heard a commotion. Figures darted through the corridors. Humans, she realized, fighting off small groups of marauders with precision and skill. She had seen humans before in reports, but only in formal meetings or holographic transmissions. Seeing them in action was something else entirely. They moved with confidence, trust in each other, and sheer determination. One human, in particular, caught her eye. He was tall, with dark hair and sharp eyes that scanned the surroundings constantly. Unlike others who might have been intimidated by a royal figure, he treated her as an equal. Without asking her name or title, he shouted, "This way, stay close." Valira felt a strange mix of surprise and relief. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not at court, not in her own family. Usually people were cautious, polite, distant. This human was direct, unafraid, and kind. They ran together through the station, dodging debris and small attacks. At one point, Valira hesitated, unsure whether a narrow corridor was safe. The human noticed immediately. He grabbed her arm gently and said, "You're not a burden. You can do this, I know you can." The words struck her in a way she hadn't expected. Someone believed in her. Someone thought she was capable, brave, important. And then, without thinking, he added, "And you're beautiful." Valira froze. Beautiful. No one had ever said that to her. Not a word, not a gesture, not even a polite lie. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. She wanted to believe him, but disbelief warred with hope. Was it really possible that someone could see past her differences and notice something real? The human didn't wait for her answer. He pulled her forward as a panel above them exploded, showering sparks. They ran through the station's corridors side by side, relying on each other to survive. And for the first time, Valira felt seen. When they finally reached a safe chamber, she collapsed onto a bench, trembling from adrenaline and emotion. The human, still catching his breath, looked at her with a calm steadiness. "You're okay," he said. "We made it." Valira's hands shook as she touched her face, as if confirming the truth of his words. You really meant it?" she asked softly. He smiled, a mixture of exhaustion and warmth. "I did. I've seen a lot in my life, but you stand out. You're brave, smart, and yes, beautiful." Valira's eyes filled with tears. Not tears of sadness, but something new, something fragile and exciting. Could it really be true? Could someone, anyone, see her in this way? For the first time in her life, she let herself hope. The station was still dangerous. More attacks could come at any moment. But Valira no longer felt completely alone. Someone had acknowledged her worth. Someone had treated her as more than her title or her differences. As she watched the human check the station's systems, she felt a flicker of determination. Perhaps she didn't need to be invisible anymore. Perhaps there was a place in the galaxy for someone like her. The station was still shaking from the last attack. Sparks flew from damaged panels and smoke curled in the air, leaving a bitter taste. Princess Valira steadied herself, trying to keep her thoughts clear. Her pulse was still racing, and the feeling of fear lingered like a shadow. She looked at the human beside her. His name, she remembered, was Alex. He moved with confidence, scanning the corridors for danger, checking every corner before they advanced. Valira had never been in a situation like this. At court, she had always observed threats from a distance, using reports and data to make decisions. But here, danger was real, immediate, and deadly, and yet, somehow she felt safer with Alex, not because of his strength alone, but because he treated her as a partner, not a delicate princess. Alex turned to her, noticing her hesitation. "We need to reach the control center. If we can reboot the station's systems, we can stop the marauders from breaking in further," he explained. His voice was calm, steady, and somehow reassuring. "Can you handle that?" Valira nodded. "I can try." Her hands shook slightly as she adjusted the straps on her utility pack. She didn't want him to see how scared she really felt. She had spent her life hiding her vulnerability, but something about Alex made it easier to face it. They moved carefully through the station, the sound of their footsteps mingling with distant alarms. Pieces of debris crunched under their feet. Occasionally, a flicker of movement would make Valira's heart leap, but each time Alex was there, guiding her, giving instructions without being overbearing. As they rounded a corner, a group of marauders appeared, their weapons raised. They hadn't noticed Valira and Alex yet. Alex ducked behind a console and whispered, "Stay here. Watch my back." Valira's first instinct was to run, to hide. But then she remembered his words from earlier. "You're not a burden. You can do this. I know you can." She took a deep breath, and for the first time she stepped forward, ready to face the danger. Using the station's layout to her advantage, she guided Alex through narrow corridors and side passages. Together, they avoided detection and reached the control center. The room was in chaos, flickering screens, sparks flying from exposed wires and panels hanging loose. Valira's heart raced. She had studied technology all her life, but this was the first time she had to use it under pressure. Alex began working on the controls, his fingers moving swiftly over the panels. "I need you to help me stabilize the power grid," he said, glancing at her. "I can guide you, but I need both hands free. Can you do it?" Valira nodded again, trying to calm her nerves. She followed his instructions carefully, adjusting circuits and rerouting power as he directed. Sparks flew around them, and the room shook from distant explosions, but neither of them flinched. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Valira realized she had never felt so alive. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, mixing with a strange warmth she couldn't quite name. She was contributing, helping, and, most importantly, being seen. Alex's occasional glances of encouragement made her chest tighten in a way that was unfamiliar but not unwelcome. Finally, with a final adjustment, the station's systems began to stabilize. Alarms quieted, lights flickered back to life, and the automated defenses activated, creating barriers to keep the marauders out. They had succeeded. Alex leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. "We did it," he said with a tired smile. "You were amazing." Valira felt heat rise to her cheeks. I just followed your instructions," she said softly. He shook his head. "No. You did more than follow instructions. You stayed calm under pressure. You thought quickly. You didn't let fear control you. That's bravery." Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear this time, but from the unexpected weight of his words. She had never been called brave in a way that felt real. At court, people praised her cautiously, always polite, always distant. But Alex's words were different. They carried belief, admiration, and care. Then he added quietly, almost as an afterthought, "And you're still beautiful." Valira's heart skipped a beat. She looked at him, unsure whether to believe him. His expression was sincere, without any trace of mockery or exaggeration. For a moment, she felt a flicker of hope, a fragile, glowing thread, that maybe she wasn't as unlovable as she had always thought. The calm didn't last long. Sensors detected more marauders approaching. "We need to move. Now," Alex said. Valira followed him through maintenance tunnels, using her knowledge of the station's design to find safe paths. They moved quickly, but quietly, careful not to alert the intruders. As they turned a corner, a marauder stepped out, blocking their path. Alex acted immediately, using a combination of combat skill and quick thinking to subdue the intruder. Valira watched, heart pounding, amazed at his courage. Then he glanced at her. "Your turn," he said, a small grin on his face. Her stomach twisted with nerves. "My turn?" she asked. "Yes." "You can do it," he said simply. "I know you can." Valira took a deep breath. She had never fought before, not in real life. But in that moment, she realized something important. Fear was natural, but it didn't have to control her. She stepped forward, using the techniques she had studied in simulations. With careful precision, she disabled the intruder, leaving him unconscious but unharmed. Alex's grin widened. "See? I told you." Valira felt a rush of pride and surprise. Not only had she acted, but she had succeeded, and Alex had seen it. He had believed in her even when she doubted herself. As they continued toward the escape pods, Valera began to understand something she had never truly realized. Bravery, kindness, and even beauty were not just about how others saw her. They were about how she allowed herself to be. When they reached the escape pods, Alex turned to her. "We need to pick one and launch," he said. "The station is not safe for long." Valera looked at the pods, then at the stars outside. The galaxy was vast, endless, and full of unknown dangers, but for the first time she felt ready to face them. Not alone, but with someone who believed in her. She stepped forward, choosing a pod beside Alex. As the doors closed, she felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. They were leaving the station behind, moving into the unknown, but together. Inside the pod, Valera's thoughts drifted to the words Alex had spoken. Beautiful. She repeated it quietly to herself. Could it really be true? Could someone really see her for who she was, and like what they saw? The thought made her heart ache in a way she couldn't explain, a mixture of hope, joy, and uncertainty. The pod launched into space, the station shrinking behind them. Valera watched the stars streak past, thinking about everything she had always believed about herself. She had spent her life hiding, believing she was unlovable. But Alex's simple words had begun to break that belief. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future that was not filled with loneliness. She imagined friendship, trust, and maybe even love. She imagined being seen, not as a princess or an oddity, but as herself, someone worthy, capable, and yes, beautiful. Alex noticed her silence and glanced at her. "You're quiet," he said. "Everything okay?" Valera nodded, a small smile forming. "Yes," she said softly. "Everything is different now." He didn't press further, sensing that some thoughts were hers to process alone, but the warmth in his eyes reassured her. In a galaxy full of danger and uncertainty, she had found something rare, a person who believed in her. As the pod sped through space, Valera leaned back, letting herself feel for the first time in years. The loneliness was still there, but it no longer ruled her. A small spark had been lit, and she knew it would grow. For the first time, Princess Valera felt a quiet, hopeful thrill. She was not invisible. She was not unlovable. And maybe, just maybe someone very human had just changed everything. The stars stretched endlessly around them as the pod sailed through space. Princess Valera sat quietly, her hands clasped in her lap, still trying to make sense of the day's events. The destruction of the station, the danger, the adrenaline, it all seemed unreal. And yet, one thing felt undeniably real: Alex. Alex, seated beside her, was checking the pod's systems. His movements were calm, practiced, and steady. The kind of confidence that only came from someone who had faced danger countless times. He glanced at her, noticing her thoughtful silence. "You've been quiet," he said, his voice soft but teasing. "Plotting a way to boss me around or just trying to stare me down?" Valera looked at him, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Neither," she admitted. "I'm thinking." "About?" he asked, curious. She hesitated. Could she share her feelings, the whirlwind of hope, fear, and confusion he had stirred in her? "About everything," she said finally. "About the station, the attack, and about you." Alex tilted his head slightly, a faint smile on his lips. "Me?" "Yes," she said softly. You acted as if I mattered. You didn't treat me like a fragile princess. You trusted me." Alex shrugged casually, though his eyes held warmth. "Of course I did. You helped save that station. You were brave, smart, and, let's be honest, a little stubborn. But that's a good thing." Valera felt a heat rise to her cheeks. She had never had anyone speak to her like that. At court, people flattered or avoided her. Here, Alex saw her, for who she truly was, without pretense or fear. And then, as if reading her mind, he added softly, "And you're beautiful, inside and out." The words echoed in her mind, soft and steady, and she felt something fragile awaken inside her. Hope. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that she was more than her differences, her insecurities, her doubts. For hours, the pod glided silently through the void. The journey was long, and Valira watched Alex work, fascinated by his skill. He navigated asteroid fields with precision, adjusted shields against small debris, and calculated trajectories with a speed she could hardly comprehend. She realized humans were astonishing in their adaptability, creativity, and courage. "You really are remarkable," she said after a while, unable to hold back. Alex looked up, surprised, then laughed lightly. "I think you mean extraordinary, but I'll take remarkable." Valira smiled, the first genuine smile in what felt like years. She wanted to talk more, to open up, but the words felt heavy. Trust did not come easily to her. She had been judged and dismissed her entire life. Even here, in the safety of a pod with a human who believed in her, doubt lingered. The moment passed quickly. Sensors on the pod detected an unknown vessel approaching at high speed. Alex's hands flew over the controls. "Unknown ship," he muttered. "Possible pirates or raiders. Hold on." Valira gripped the edge of her seat, heart pounding. She had never faced such danger before, not in simulations, not in court battles. She felt fear clawing at her chest. But then she remembered Alex's words, his trust in her, and the warmth of his belief. She straightened, taking a deep breath. "Guide me," she said, determination in her voice. Alex glanced at her, surprise and pride in his eyes. You want to help?" "Yes," she said firmly. "I want to try." For the next hour, they worked together. Alex maneuvered the pod, but Valira assisted, monitoring sensors, recalculating escape trajectories, and helping him identify weak points in the approaching vessel's path. The human's instincts were precise, but Valira's intelligence and knowledge of alien technology gave them an advantage. She realized something she had never known. She was not helpless. She could contribute. She could fight. She could survive. When the enemy ship closed in, Alex made a daring move, dodging through a field of asteroids. Valira's hands moved quickly, recalculating paths to avoid collisions. Sparks flew across. The pod of small asteroids grazed the hull. Fear surged through her, but she pushed it aside. She focused on the task, trusting Alex and herself. Finally, with a coordinated effort, they managed to outmaneuver the vessel. It fired once, then broke, off the chase, leaving them alone in the quiet vastness of space. Valira exhaled, her body trembling from the adrenaline. Alex leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "You were amazing," he said. "I could not have done that without you." Valira's chest tightened. I did not think I could," she admitted. "That's the thing," Alex said, smiling. "You don't know what you're capable of until you try. And you tried. You faced fear and you didn't let it stop you. That is incredible." Her mind replayed his earlier words. Beautiful, brave, incredible. They felt like lifelines, words that lifted her from years of self-doubt. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine that maybe she was worth admiration, worth friendship, worth something more. Hours later, when the immediate danger had passed, they sat in silence watching the stars. Valira finally spoke. "Alex, why do you care about me? Why do you see me differently from everyone else?" Alex's eyes softened. "I don't know exactly," he admitted. "Maybe because I've met a lot of people and most of them care about titles, appearances, or power. But with you, I see someone real. Someone strong, kind, and beautiful. And I can't ignore that." Valira felt warmth rise in her chest. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him fully, but old fears lingered. I have never been trusted like this," she said quietly. "People always doubt me, dismiss me. Even my family." "Forget them for now," Alex interrupted gently. "Right now, it's just you and me. You Don't have to prove anything to anyone else. The simplicity of his words struck her. Just her. Just Alex. Not the court, not the nobles, not her advisors. She realized that trust didn't have to be earned from everyone. It could start with one person, someone who saw her as she truly was. That night, as the pod drifted through space, Valira lay in her seat, thinking about everything she had experienced. She remembered the moment Alex called her beautiful, the way he relied on her during danger, the way he treated her as an equal. A spark of hope burned inside her. She could survive, she could fight, she could be brave. And maybe, with him, she could learn to trust. Morning came with a soft glow from distant stars. Alex was already up, checking navigation and life support systems. Valira watched him work, marveling at his focus and skill. "Do humans ever sleep peacefully?" she asked, half teasing. Alex laughed softly. "We try. But in space, peaceful. Sleep is rare, you get used to it." Valira smiled, feeling a rare lightness in her chest. "I would like to learn," she said. Alex glanced at her, raising an eyebrow. "Learn what?" "To be brave," she said softly. "To trust. To believe in myself. And maybe to see the good in others too." He nodded, as if approving. "You're already doing it, and I'll be here to remind you when doubt sneaks in. Deal?" "Deal," she said, feeling the word carry more weight than she had expected. Their journey continued through asteroid belts, nebulae, and drifting debris. Along the way, Valira began to notice small things about Alex, his sense of humor, his patience, his courage, and the way he seemed to notice her without judgment. She realized that humans, unlike many of her people, could be direct, honest, and warm, and she liked that. One afternoon, as they floated past a glowing nebula, Alex turned to her with a serious expression. "I want you to know something," he said. "I don't just admire you for what you did on the station or for your skills. I admire you for who you are. Every choice, every thought, every moment you've been true to yourself, that's what matters, that's beautiful." Valira felt her heart tighten. She had spent her life thinking she was unlovable, unworthy, and invisible. But here, in the quiet vastness of space, a human had seen her, not her title, not her differences, but her true self. And he had called it beautiful. For the first time, Valira allowed herself to hope, not just for survival, but for trust, friendship, and maybe something more. She realized that bravery was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. And trust was not about being certain, but about allowing someone to see you, even when it was frightening. As the pod sailed onward, Valira leaned back, letting the stars fill her vision. She no longer felt entirely alone. Alex had opened a door she had never dared to approach before, a door to courage, trust, and the possibility of love, and she was ready finally to step through it. The pod descended toward Valira's home planet, its surface gleaming with silver mountains and glowing cities that stretched across the horizon. From above, the world looked calm, almost peaceful, but Valira knew better. Court life was never simple. There were always whispers, alliances, and betrayals hidden behind polite smiles. Returning home after the station's chaos would not be easy. Alex adjusted the controls, guiding the pod toward a secure landing platform near the royal palace. "You ready for this?" he asked, his voice calm but serious. Valira nodded, though, her stomach twisted with nerves. "As ready as I can be, but I am worried about what the court will say." Alex glanced at her, his dark eyes steady. "Let them say what they want. You know who you are, and you've proven it. That's what matters." She tried to take comfort in his words, but doubt still lingered. For years, nobles had belittled her, questioning her strength, her intelligence, and even her right to rule. Returning as the princess who had survived a station attack, with a human by her side, would undoubtedly stir curiosity, envy, and perhaps even scorn. The pod landed smoothly, and Valira stepped onto the platform. The palace loomed ahead, grand and imposing, its spires reaching high into the sky. Courtiers and guards were already gathered, their faces masked in polite neutrality. But Valira could sense the undercurrent of judgment, the subtle glances that weighed her every move. Alex followed her closely, standing slightly behind her. Valira felt a strange mix of comfort and pride. Comfort in his presence, pride in showing that she could walk beside him without fear. The first courtier to approach was Lady Dravina, a high-ranking noble who had always been critical of Valira. Her sharp eyes scanned the princess and then flicked toward Alex. "A human?" she asked, her tone dripping with disdain. "And you dare bring him here?" Valira straightened, her violet skin glowing softly in the sunlight. "He is no threat. He is my companion, and he aided me in saving lives. That alone proves his worth." Lady Dravina's lips tightened, and she muttered something under her breath. Valira ignored it, feeling Alex's steadying presence at her side. He gave her a reassuring nod. She could face this. Together, they could face this. The audience in the courtyard grew tense. Whispers spread quickly among the nobles. A princess with a human? Is this an insult to tradition? Will she ever learn? Valira heard it all, but instead of retreating into fear, she held her head high. She had survived a station, attack. She had faced death and fear and had emerged stronger. She would not be intimidated by whispers. In the council chamber, the situation escalated. Advisors and nobles gathered, voices rising as they debated Valira's actions. "Your Highness, you brought an outsider into the palace," one counselor said sharply. "This could be seen as disrespectful to tradition and dangerous to the throne." Valira took a deep breath. "I brought him because he helped save lives," she said firmly. "He acted with courage and skill. I trust him, and I ask that you respect that." Another counselor sneered. "Trust? This is not about trust. This is about protocol. You risk embarrassment and political instability." Alex stepped forward slightly, his voice calm and steady. "With all due respect, protocol cannot replace competence. The princess acted decisively in a crisis. That saved lives. That should be recognized, not criticized." Murmurs ran through the room. Many had never seen a human speak in a council chamber, let alone challenge tradition with such confidence. Valira watched the reactions carefully. Some nobles seemed annoyed, others curious, and a few, unexpectedly, thoughtful. Valira's voice grew stronger. "I will not hide from those who judge me unfairly. I have done what I believe is right. I will not let fear of disapproval dictate my choices. If standing for life, for courage, and for truth is unworthy, then so be it. But I am still your princess, and I will lead with my own judgment." The chamber fell silent. Alex smiled slightly, proud of her courage. Valira felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of pride, relief, and something more subtle. For the first time, she felt that she could face the judgment of her people without shrinking into herself. Later, as they walked through the palace gardens, Valira turned to Alex. "I never thought I could face them like this," she admitted. "They have always made me feel small, unworthy, unlovable, and yet, here I am." Alex glanced at her, his expression soft. "You were never unworthy. You were always capable. You just needed someone to see it, and now, maybe you see it too." Valira's violet eyes met his dark ones. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I am beginning to." Their next challenge came when a formal dinner was called. The nobles and counselors were gathered in the grand dining hall, an ornate space filled with crystal chandeliers and shimmering floors. Every eye turned toward Valira and Alex as they entered. Whispers ran like wind through the room. Lady Dravina, seated at the head table, raised an eyebrow. "A human, at our royal table," she said, her voice sharp. "I suppose we should hope he does not embarrass himself, or us." Valira ignored the comment, focusing on Alex. "Stay calm," she whispered. "We will get through this together." Alex nodded, offering a small, reassuring smile. "Together," he agreed. During the dinner, Valira spoke with poise and intelligence. She answered questions, shared her experiences from the station, and explained how human ingenuity had aided in saving lives. Alex supported her subtly, adding precise details and offering insights without overshadowing her. Their partnership was visible, but not threatening. It was a display of mutual respect and capability. By the end of the meal, murmurs had shifted, from judgment to cautious admiration. Some nobles could not hide their surprise. The princess, once quiet and uncertain, now stood confidently with a human who respected and trusted her. Her actions were not only admirable, they were inspiring. After the dinner, Valera and Alex walked through the palace terrace overlooking the glowing city below. "They are changing their minds," Valera said quietly, a hint of awe in her voice. "Even a little." Alex laughed softly. "Some of them, maybe. But what matters is that you're changing your own mind. You're learning to trust yourself, your decisions, and even me." Valera felt her heart swell. Trust had always been difficult for her. She had hidden behind titles, protocols, and rules, afraid to show her true self. But Alex had taught her something vital. Trust begins with a single choice, a single step. And sometimes it begins with one person believing in you. That night, alone in her chamber, Valera reflected on the day's events. The court had not fully accepted her, and whispers still lingered in the halls, but she no longer felt crushed by them. She realized that strength was not measured by others' approval, but by one's own courage and integrity. She thought of Alex, of his words, his confidence in her, and the way he had treated her as an equal. A warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she had never experienced before. Could she allow herself to feel it fully? Could she allow herself to believe that she was worthy of admiration and love? The answer was slowly forming, fragile but real. She had faced fear, judgment, and prejudice and had emerged stronger. And she knew that with Alex by her side, she could face whatever else the galaxy and her court might throw at her. For the first time, Princess Valera felt truly seen. Not as a princess who had to follow rules or meet expectations, but as herself, a person capable of courage, trust, and perhaps even love. And in that realization, she found a new kind of strength, one that could not be shaken by whispers or judgments. The palace was quiet in the early morning, sunlight spilling over the silver towers and casting long shadows across the grounds. Princess Valera stood on her balcony, watching the city below. The soft hum of the streets and the gentle glow of the buildings filled her with a strange sense of peace. She had come far in a short time. From the lonely princess who wandered her gardens in silence to the young woman who had faced danger, risked her life, and found trust in another being. She had changed. Alex stepped onto the balcony beside her, offering a warm smile. "You look thoughtful," he said. His voice was calm, comforting, a contrast to the courtly tension they had faced yesterday. Valera turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting the rising sun. "I am," she admitted. "I've been thinking about everything, about who I am, what I've done and what I can be." Alex nodded, his gaze steady. "You've already shown so much courage, wisdom, and kindness. You've faced judgment and danger, and you're still standing. That's not something everyone can do." She smiled faintly, but a flicker of doubt remained. "And yet, sometimes I still wonder, can I truly be myself here? Can I show my people who I really am without being rejected?" Alex took her hand, gently. "Valera, you've already shown them. Not by words alone, but by action. You proved that you are capable, that you are strong, and that you are worthy. Whether they accept it now or later, it does not change the truth. You know who you are, and that is what matters." Her chest tightened with gratitude. She had spent so long doubting herself, hiding her insecurities beneath titles and rules. But Alex had seen her as she truly was, and in his eyes, she was enough. She felt a warmth in her heart that had nothing to do with duty or obligation, something simple and powerful: acceptance. That day, the court convened again. Rumors had spread about Valera and Alex, and the nobles gathered in anticipation. Some faces were stern, skeptical, and cautious. Others, she noticed, seemed genuinely curious. She stepped into the chamber with Alex at her side and felt a calm determination settle over her. "Your Highness," one counselor began, voice tight with formality, "you have returned after a dangerous mission with a human companion." Some questioned the propriety of this action. Valera raised her head, her voice steady. "I returned with Alex because he is my ally, my partner in the challenges we faced. He acted with courage and intelligence, saving lives alongside me. That is why he is here, not because of titles or tradition, but because of what he proved. In action." Murmurs ran through the room. Some nobles exchanged surprised glances. It was unusual for the princess to speak with such confidence and authority, but Alex's presence beside her reinforced her words. He had faith in her, and together they were a united front. Lady Dravina, still wearing her usual sharp expression, finally spoke. "Do you expect us to accept this human as part of court life?" Valera met her gaze steadily. "I expect you to accept reality. He has shown loyalty, wisdom, and courage. Those qualities matter more than tradition, and I ask that you judge him not by his origin but by his actions." There was a pause. The room felt heavy with anticipation. Then, quietly, a few nobles nodded in agreement. Others, reluctantly, followed. Change was not immediate, but the shift was visible. Valera felt a surge of pride not only in herself but in Alex, who had trusted and supported her every step of the way. Later, in the gardens, Valera and Alex walked together, the soft light casting long shadows across the paths. "You've changed things," Valera said softly, almost in disbelief. "I never imagined that facing fear and judgment could feel this freeing." Alex smiled. "You did it, Valera. You were brave, smart, and honest. I just reminded you what you already were, and now you're starting to see it yourself." Her heart swelled. "I think I am," she admitted. "I think I finally understand that I am not unlovable, not invisible, not weak." Alex looked at her, his dark eyes warm and sincere. "You are everything you need to be, and if you let me, I will be here to remind you every day." Valera felt a flutter in her chest, a feeling she had never experienced before. It was more than trust, more than pride. It was a quiet, growing hope. Could she allow herself to accept it fully? Could she allow herself to feel that someone truly cared for her, beyond duty, appearances, and titles? "Yes," she whispered. "I want that." Days turned into weeks and life at the palace slowly began to adjust. Valera continued her royal duties, now with a new sense of confidence. She worked with advisors, led diplomatic missions, and even trained with palace security to prepare for emergencies. Through it all, Alex remained by her side, not as a protector but as a partner, a friend, and she realized with quiet joy something more. Together, they faced challenges that tested their courage and intelligence. They resolved conflicts, prevented sabotage, and even negotiated peace with neighboring planets. Each victory, small or large, reinforced Valera's sense of self-worth. She was no longer the lonely princess hiding in her gardens. She was a leader, a partner, and someone who could face the universe with strength and confidence. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the palace terrace, Valera turned to Alex. "Do you remember when you first called me beautiful?" she asked softly. Alex smiled, the memory clear in his eyes. "Of course, I meant it then, and I mean it now." Valera's violet eyes shone with emotion. "I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was impossible. But now I see it differently. I see that beauty is not just about appearances. It's about courage, kindness, and being true to oneself." "And you helped me see that?" Alex took her hand, holding it gently. "You've always had that beauty inside you, Valera. I just helped you recognize it. And now, maybe the rest of your world can see it too." She smiled, feeling a deep warmth in her chest. For the first time, she truly believed that she was worthy, not just in the eyes of one human, but in her own eyes as well. She felt seen, appreciated, and loved. The next weeks were filled with celebration and recognition. Nobles who had doubted her began to acknowledge her courage and intelligence. The palace grew livelier, filled with genuine conversations and shared purpose. Valira's people began to respect her not only as a princess, but as a leader who could inspire and unite. And through it all, Alex remained by her side. Not as a savior, but as a companion who believed in her, encouraged her, and shared in her victories and challenges. Their bond grew stronger, rooted in mutual respect, admiration, and trust. One quiet evening, as the stars twinkled above the palace towers, Valira and Alex walked through the gardens hand in hand. She stopped at the crystal tree, its rainbow glow reflecting in her eyes. "I used to feel so alone," she admitted, her voice soft. "I thought no one could ever see me for who I am, or love me." Alex squeezed her hand gently. "And now, she said, smiling, "I know. I was never truly alone. I just needed someone to remind me of what I already was, and I think I've finally learned to believe it." He smiled, brushing a strand of violet hair from her face. "I'm glad I was that someone." Valira laughed softly, a sound full of relief and joy. "And I'm glad you stayed," she said. Together they watched the city below, the palace glowing softly in the night. For the first time, Valira felt complete. She had faced fear, judgment, and uncertainty, and emerged stronger. She had discovered trust, courage, and love. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and unknowns, but for Valira, it no longer felt frightening. She had someone by her side who saw her for who she truly was, and she had learned to see herself in the same light. For Princess Valira, the journey had begun as one of survival and self-discovery, but it ended in acceptance, confidence, and the quiet, powerful joy of being truly seen. And as she stood with Alex hand in hand gazing at the stars, she knew that no matter what the universe held, she was ready to face it, all because someone had simply called her beautiful.